In this video, we are going to talk about problem 9.116 out of our book, Apparel and Services. According to the document Consumer Expenditures, a publication of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average consumer unit spent $1,736 on apparel and services in 2012. That same year, 25 consumer units in the Northeast had the following annual expenditures in dollars on apparel and services. At the 5% significance level, do the data provide sufficient evidence to conclude that the 2012 mean annual expenditure on apparel and services for consumer units in the Northeast differed from the national mean of $1,736? Note, the sample mean and sample standard deviation of the data are $1,922.76 and $350.90 respectively. Okay, so first off, we are going to run a hypothesis test on this to test the hypothesis that they ask us to test down here. In this example, we do not know what the population standard deviation is. They never come out and tell us what it is. They do tell us what the sample standard deviation is, and so therefore this is going to be a one mean t test. Okay. So our very first thing that we need to do, right, in the procedure for the one mean t test is to decide what the null hypothesis is going to be and what the alternative hypothesis is going to be. So that's going to come from the statement of the problem, right? And remember, there's the three types of alternative hypotheses that we talked about. And so you can see if you start reading here, at the 5% significance level, do the data provide sufficient evidence to conclude that the 2012 mean annual expenditure on apparel and services for consumer units in the Northeast differed from the national mean of 1,736. Okay, so the mean differed from 1,736. So that tells us, right, that our alternative hypothesis is that the population mean is not equal to, right? That's when they say differs, right? 1,736. Okay, so that means that this is a two-tailed test. Okay. All right. Next up is the null hypothesis, right? And we know that that is always going in our book, right? It's always going to be the mean equals, right? And then whatever the same value is. Okay. Next up is to decide on the level of significance alpha. That's going to be stated in the problem. For the problems that we do, it says at the 5% significance level. So, okay, so they just flat out come out and tell you that. All right, next up, we want to calculate the value of the test statistic. So that is going to be x bar minus mu naught divided by s divided by square root n. All right, so x bar is our sample mean, and they tell us that the sample mean is $1,922.76. Okay, mu naught is going to be this number that's here with the null and alternative hypothesis. S is our sample standard deviation, so that is $350.90. And we are going to divide that by the square root of the sample size. So it says 25, right? That same year, 25 consumer units. Yeah, okay. So our sample size is 25. So we're going to divide by the square root of 25 there. All right. So 1922.76 minus 1736 $350.90 divided by 25. All right, and that comes out to be 2.66. All right, let me write that down. Okay, so we calculate our test statistic. Next up, we get the p-value, right? This is a two-tailed test. So what we were looking at, right, we had 2.66. So that would be somewhere over here to the right of the mean, right where the hump is, and the area to the left of minus 2.66. So this area here together with this area here. Okay, so we need this total area. Whatever this area is, we're going to look this area up in the in table 4, right? And then we're going to have to double whatever we get, right, when we do that. All right. So before we go to table 4, we'll need to know what the degrees of freedom are, right? Remember, the degrees of freedom is 1 less than the sample size. So our sample size here is 25. So we get 24 for the degrees of freedom. Okay, so we're going to go to table 4. We're going to go to the row for 24 degrees of freedom, right? And then we are going to find where our t-value is located, okay? So we're going to skim along here and figure out where 2.66 would be located. Right, it is not one of these numbers, right? But we can see that 2.66 would be in between 2.492 and 2.797 on that row. Okay. Now remember, this table only is giving the area to the right, okay, of that. So in this case, the two-tailed test, it's only half the area. Okay. All right. So then we're gonna go up, straight up to the top. And so what that means is that our half of our p-value, okay, so in this case, half of our p-value, right, so because it's a two-tailed test, is going to be between 0.01 and 0.005, okay. All right, and so that is only this right part over here, right? What we'll need to do is to double everything in here. So if we multiply this entire thing by 2, 2 times 0.005, 2 times p over 2, and 2 times 0.01, okay? Here, 2 times 0.005 is going to be 0.01, and 2 times p over 2 is just going to be p, and then 2 times 0.01 is going to be 0.02. All right, so we know that our p-value, right, is somewhere between 0.01 and 0.02. Next up, right, now that we have an idea of what our p-value is, we're going to compare our p-value, right, to alpha, the level of significance, and decide which one is bigger, right? Well, look, our p-value is between 0.01 and 0.02, right? And our alpha is 0.05. Well, 0.05 is bigger than 0.02, so that means that the p-value, right, is less than alpha, okay? All right, and so that means that we reject the null hypothesis. All right, and now our conclusion, right? The data do provide sufficient evidence to conclude all right, let's look back. All right, this is talking about mean annual expenditure on apparel and services. All right, so our null hypothesis is that a difference. So the data do provide sufficient evidence to conclude, and then the alternative hypothesis, right, stated in terms of the problem, right? So that is that the mean annual expenditure on apparel and services in the Northeast differs from 1736, and I ran out of room, right? But in 2012. Okay. All right, and so again, right, that statement is just that same statement: the data do or do not provide. In this case, it's do, because we rejected the null hypothesis. So the data do provide sufficient evidence to conclude, and then this, the alternative hypothesis, that's just restated, right, in terms of the context of this problem. All right, that's it on this one.